Hello, I'm John Everington, the Middle East and Africa editor for The Banker. As The Banker celebrates its 95th anniversary, I'm delighted to be joined today by Sola David-Borha, Chief Executive for African Regions at Standard Bank Group. Sola, thanks very much for joining us today.
Welcome, John.
Perhaps let's start with the impact of the coronavirus in Africa for this coming year. Which markets within your footprint do you think are going to face the biggest challenges in 2021? And where are the brighter spots going to be?
2020 has been a very challenging year. Low-cost invasion, cyclone attacks prior to COVID. And COVID really just really threw that region into its first recession in 25 years. The countries that were more deeply affected were obviously those that were dependent on commodities. So, the Angolas, the Nigeria, Zambia, to some extent, because of copper prices. So it was a double whammy for those countries. And we found that the East African countries, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, although affected as well, but they are still able to mitigate the challenge because of the fact that they have a diversified revenue base. They also have an integrated trade area. So in terms of intra-Africa trade within that East Africa community, it is quite strong. So, despite the pandemic, that region still recorded a positive GDP growth, unlike the other markets that, had 2 to 3% negative growth. Yeah, so that's kind of how we saw regional differences across sub-Saharan Africa.
Coming back to East Africa, we've talked about the key role of major infrastructure projects within the region as a driver for economic growth in markets such as Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda. To what extent are those projects going to be affected by the pandemic? Is the pandemic going to slow down such projects, or do you think it's going to be less affected by coronavirus?
Well, I think definitely those projects were slowed down just because of the travel disruptions, supply chains, and just the difficulties in getting those types of large-scale projects on board. But we did begin to see some activity, for instance, the Mozambique LNG, where the Total began to mobilize into that region. We were hopeful that the Uganda-Tanzania crude oil pipeline, the FID, would be signed towards the end of last year, but that was further delayed, possibly because of the elections that took place in Uganda. But, we are expecting that certainly, this year, we think by end of H1, they might actually come to FID. So definitely those infrastructure projects were delayed, but we don't think that they have been derailed. They will still take place. And definitely I believe that, infrastructure is such an important driver for recovery from COVID. And despite lots of challenges, I believe there is a political commitment to get those projects across the line.
In addition to infrastructure, one of the things that we discussed before is trade and its impacting sort of economic growth. And of course, in 2021, we've already seen the significant milestone of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area formally coming to effect. It's obviously going to take some time for the full benefits to be realized from that agreement. But what are the crucial next steps that need to be taken to really make it a reality across the continent, would you say?
The key is removing trade barriers. And there's a lot of work being done, to get the different countries to actually pass whatever regulations or laws required to actually remove tariffs or begin to reduce tariffs and remove trade barriers to actually make it possible and attractive for traders to begin to trade across the continent. The other initiative is trying to digitize trade. Under the pandemic last year, it was extremely difficult to move paper around or bring paper into branches, for certification. So digitizing trade is an important aspect which the Secretariat is also focused on, which will help enable, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement to actually take effect. The other aspect as well is a payments platform. Now, AfroExim is driving a payments portal that will enable traders to trade across countries in their local currencies, because that platform is underpinned by a dollar backstop, and once that is on stream, it does make it easier, in addition to other settlement systems, to actually transact and make payments, for goods and services. So I believe those initiatives are building blocks to actually getting this agreement up and running. And it will be a slow start, but I do believe that it'll be one of the stimulus packages for Africa to recover from the effects of the pandemic.
Thank you very much indeed, Sola, for talking to us today and for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome, John.
Thank you again, Sola, and thank you very much for watching. You can find more videos in the 95th anniversary series on our YouTube channel and at thebanker.com/video.